David HaMelech is the grandfather of Mashiach. Mashiach has to be a descendant of King David from the tribe of Yehuda. He has to come through one of the sons of King David, and that is King Solomon. How was King Solomon born? To Bathsheba. So, let's take a look at the story. King David looks out the window and he sees a woman on the balcony, and he falls madly in love with her. Her husband is a soldier in his army. He sends the soldier off to the front lines, hoping that he would get killed, or so it seems. And then he marries Bathsheba. Bathsheba was not a woman, she was a young girl. But in those days, girls got married very young. It's also true that every soldier that went off to war under King David divorced his wife. Because if he should be lost at war or taken prisoner for the rest of his life, his wife, who was still married to him, would be a living widow. So to avoid that happening, every soldier gave his wife a divorce. So Bathsheba was already divorced when King David saw her. Another little unknown fact is that her husband had committed treason. David could have him executed on the grounds of treason, but he knew that that would be misinterpreted. And so he simply sent him back to war. So technically speaking, no, it was not adultery, and no, he did not kill the husband in order to be able to have the wife. That's just legally, technically, the reality of the situation. But King David cried for the rest of his life, asking forgiveness for this. Forgiveness for what? For the way things looked. Because this was going to be the grandfather and grandmother of Moshiach, it was concealed behind the ugliest possible concealment. So no one should notice that there is something holy going on. But on a mystical level, the reason that this event needed such an ugly concealment is because every step in the development of Moshiach has to be buried behind a lot of distraction, a lot of confusion, so that the godliness of what is happening should be unnoticed. And that's why as you read the story, sounds terrible. Really sounds terrible. But you have to stop and think. What is God telling us? That some guy committed adultery? So what? Why do we need to know that? And once we know that, why are we still interested in this guy? So you can see how dangerous it is to be content with surface impressions. What would it mean that Jews and Christians and Muslims all venerate King David if he committed adultery? He's no better than the average person. And he had the husband killed? We should never mention his name. And if we do venerate him because of his great poetry, that itself is so immoral. To respect a person who has no morals? Why? Because he's talented? That's not kosher. That's bad news for us. So, it turns out anyone who gets the impression that King David sinned, not correct even technically. Spiritually, it's that concealment. It's really interesting that Almost every individual in the Torah has something that doesn't look right. Doesn't look right. And we have to explain what really happened.